Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Aavas Financiers Limited Q3 FY21 earnings conference call. This conference call may contain forward-looking statements about the company, which are based on the beliefs, opinions, and expectations of the company as on date of this call. These statements are not the guarantees of future performance and involve risks and uncertainties that are difficult to predict. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Sushil Agarwal, Managing Director and CEO of Aavas Financiers Limited. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Agarwal.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for participating on the earnings call to discuss the performance of our company for Q3 and 9-month FY21. With me, I have Mr. Ghanshyam Rawat, CFO, Mr. Ram Naresh, Chief Business Officer, Ashutosh Atre, Chief Risk Officer, Himanshu Agrawal, Investor Relationship, and other senior member of the management team, and Strategic Growth Advisor, our Investor Relationship Advisor. The results and the presentations are available on the stock exchanges as well as our company website, and I hope everyone has had a chance to look at it. At Aavas, we continue to grow consistently in a calibrated manner and registered AUM growth of 23% year-on-year as of December 2020. With continued improvement in economic activity and people adapting to new normal, our business has also been improving. While the total disbursement for 9-month FY21 at rupees 1,644 crore rupees were lower by 21% on year-on-year basis, the disbursement for Q3 FY21 at 764 crore rupees registered 2% year-on-year growth and 15% quarter-on-quarter growth. Profit after tax for 9-month FY21 increased by 7% on year-on-year basis as per Ind AS accounting and registered a 24% year-on-year growth as per IGAAP accounting. On the asset quality front, the 1+ DPD and gross stage 3 of our company is around 8.2% and 1% respectively as of December 2020. These are largely in line with our earlier expectation. Gross stage 3 includes roughly 0.59% of the assets which have not been declared NPA for regulatory requirement and other purpose on account of an interim Supreme Court order. But we have provided for the entire stage 3 assets as per Ind AS norms and created additional provision of 19.03 crore on account of COVID. Having said that, we have witnessed an encouraging trend in collection efficiency, which improved from 95% in September to the COVID level of 98.8% in December. Further, we draw comfort from the fact that 100% of our portfolio is secured against mortgage, most of which is self-occupied residential property. Also, the portfolio is very granular in terms of customer profiles with average ticket size of sub 10 lakh rupee and average loan to value ratio is less than 50% on the outstanding amount. Now, I would hand over the line to Ghanshyam ji, CFO, to discuss various business parameters in detail.
Thank you, Sushil ji. Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to our earnings call. During this quarter, company has borrowed an incremental amount of rupees 9,356 million rupees at 7.04% for 144 months. As of December 20, our average cost of borrowing stood at 7.68% on the outstanding amount of rupees 81,861 million with an average maturity of 131 months. Our long-term credit rating continues to be AA- with a stable outlook from ICRA and CARE. Despite the highest short-term rating of A1+, we continue to maintain zero exposure to commercial paper as a prudent borrowing practice. IGAAP to India's reconciliation has been explained in detail for PAT and as well as net worth on the slide number 31 to 33 of our presentation. Key parameters. As on December 31st, 2020, total number of live accounts stood at 1,18,398, that is 22% year-on-year growth. Total number of branches was 263. We opened 18 new branches in last 12 months. Employee count of 3545 versus 3109 in December 19, 14% year-on-year growth. Assets under management grew 23% year-on-year to rupees 88,226 million as on December 31st, 2020. Product-wise breakup: home loan 73.4%, other mortgage loan 26.6%. Occupation-wise breakup: salaried 39.3%, self-employed 60.7%. The increase in salaries proportion from usual 35% level is due to higher proportion of salaried disbursement during 9 months of this FY21 and reclassification on existing few loan accounts basis of occupation of primary earning members instead of main applicant. The disbursement decreased by 21% year-on-year to rupees 16,441 million for 9 months FY21, but with the return of gradual normalcy, disbursement increased by 2% year-on-year and 15% quarter-on-quarter to rupees 7,645 million for Q3 FY21. As on 31st December 2020, average borrowing cost 7.68% against average portfolio yield of 13.42% resulted in a spread of 5.74%. Borrowing: we have access to diversified, cost-effective long-term borrowing, a strong relationship with all the lenders, development financial institutions, banks and institutions. Overall borrowing mix as on 31st December 2020 is 35% from the banks, 23.8% from assignment and securitization, 21.9% from NHB, and 19.3% for debt capital market. Provisioning: additional ECL provisioning of rupees 42.9 million created to consider the impact of COVID-19 during Q3 FY21. The total COVID provision, including earlier 3 quarters, stood at rupees 190.3 million as on December 31st, 2020. Total ECL provisioning, including COVID-19 provisioning, stood at rupees 482.9 million as on December 31st, 2020. One day assets quality. One day past due stood at rupees 8.21%. Gross stage 3 stood at 1% and net stage 3 stood at 0.72% as on December 31st, 2020. Gross stage 3, as Sushilji explained earlier, is inclusive of loan account which are not classified NPA per interim order dated 3rd September 2020 of Honorable Supreme Court. Such account have an outstanding amount rupees 413.8 million, which is approx 0.59% of AUM, have been provided for as a prudent practice during the quarter. Liquidity of rupees 26,740 million as on December 31st, 2020. Cash and cash equivalent rupees 19,670 million. Unavailed CC limit of rupees 1,220 million. Documented unavailed sanction from other banks 5,850 million. Profitability. Profit after tax increased by 7% year-on-year to rupees 2,022 million for 9 months FY21 as per India's accounting. As per IGAAP accounting, PAT has registered year-on-year growth of 24% to rupees 1,999 million for 9 months FY21. ROA was rupees 3.2% and ROE 12.2% for 9 months FY21. ROA was 3.9% and ROE was 15.1% for quarter 3 FY21. As on December 31st, 2020, we are well capitalized with the net worth of rupees 23,097 million. Capital adequacy ratio stood at 53%. Our book value per share stood at 294.6 rupees. With this, I open the floor for Q&A.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Kunal Shah from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, congratulations, sir. Good set of numbers. So firstly, in terms of this one DPD, last time it was 6.2, though we highlighted that we are settling at that level much earlier than anticipated. But how should we read into the movement, say going up to 8.2%? And finally, last time you said like 15 to 20% of it generally slips into NPL. So then should we assume like 1.3 to 1.5% C3 as we move forward, or collection efficiency is giving us a lot of comfort that it will settle at the current level?
Yeah, good afternoon, Kunal. So 1 plus number of September shows, because this was after 5 months of moratorium or 6 months of moratorium. So the account which has not paid September installment, which is roll forward number, which was 6.2%. And in a normal business, customer pays installment as on time, but certain customer miss one installment, certain customer miss second installment, and that's where we have 1 plus number. So as we have mentioned, collection efficiency in September was 95%, which is 98.8 in December, and if you remove already NPA become account, so it's 100% collection efficiency. So that is more or less giving that now the account which are in whatever buckets are going to improve. And secondly, like we were having around 5,800 accounts which has not paid the EMI in September. Now, as of December, only 2,000 accounts were there who has not paid the December installment, so significant improvement. And out of this also, most of the accounts are in first bucket or second bucket. So whatever account was supposed to be 90 plus, or we can't say 90 plus at this point of time, so it's stage 3. So that has already happened, and which is 0.8% as per IGAAP and 1% as per Ind AS, and that has already been fully provided in the balance sheet. And over and above that, again, still 19.06 crore rupees COVID provision is in the balance sheet. So first of all, we always should tell that whatever is 1 plus, 10% to 15% of it becomes NPA. So that is already reflecting 8.1% and 0.8% and IGAAP, so that is already matching. Going forward, I think as we see the trend, it will improve from this number, because earlier also we have told that it will go up to 8 to 10% and it will come down to normal 5-6% level in 1 or 2 quarters time. So that is still holding true for us. And second is this, once this government Supreme Court order will be there, I think that will also help this roll down as quickly as possible.
So with this stage 3, we should be pretty much comfortable. It's very much reflecting this 8.2% of 1 plus DPD.
Yeah.
Okay. And just 2 more questions. On securitization, this time it was higher at 2.4 along with much better yield. and now it's almost 23% of the AUM. Normally we used to keep it at 19-20. So what would be our plan out there or strategy? Should we be taking up further if there are maybe opportunities available to cross sell at a better yield? So that's first question. And secondly, just wanted to understand, you mentioned something in terms of reclassification of this sell rate, okay, which is leading to a higher proportion from, say, the applicant to the earning member. So anything to read into this, or this is just like the internal classification and much?
I will tell you, as we have told during this 9 months, we have improved filter on what we will fund or what we will not fund. So in the self-employed side, we have improved filter and only positive lists were funded. So during this 9 months, salary disbursements were higher. So the 3.5% difference, around 2.5% difference is because this 9 months higher disbursement on salaried class. Around 1.25% customer, as we have told that we have talked to 100% of the customer during the COVID period, and we have for the ECL classification also recheck everything, and in some of the cases very few cases where we have mentioned first applicant, which is business, and we have mentioned the business, but installments were coming from a salaried guy who was the main earning member of the family. So in less than around 1% or 1% cases or 1.5% cases, those has been classified once we have checked during the ECL proceeding. So this is the reference. So there is nothing to read in between on this classification. On this assignment side, Ghanshyam will explain.
Kunal, in this 9 months, we done assignment of 390 crore rupees. Last year, we done 564 crore rupees in the 9-month period. I think in last earlier calls also, we explained this thing, assignment securitization is one of our funding tools. We are consistently maintaining around 15 to 20%. It depends upon the market available and pricing available. Accordingly we figure out the deal with the bank institutions, and we do that fashion. And secondly, I want to update from additional data point on that from our side. If you see this quarter, we have shown profit on account of assignment transaction of roughly 40 crore rupees around in this quarter versus last year quarter 18 crore rupees, because in this quarter we sold a pool which is having EIS spread of more than 6.5%. That's why the higher income came. But you compare 9 month on 9 month basis. In this 9 month, I also update here also. This is a NPV of a future income we book under Ind AS accounting, but as we move ahead in the next year, it get unwinded automatically in the systems. So if we take unwinding also in the account, so in this 9 months, we have a net income of 11 crore rupees, and versus last year 9 months, we have a 26 crore rupees. So still in this 9 months, apple to apple comparison, we have a 15 crore rupees less income in this year.
Okay, yeah, thanks, that's helpful. And in proportion, it will again be like 15 to 20 odd %.
Yeah, roughly the standard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Chirag Sureka from DSP Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
Sir, hi. Actually, my question also was regarding that 8% number that we saw in 1 plus DPD. Is there a change? What is the kind of, usually these numbers reflect either distress or a change in banking behavior. What ascribes to the customer behavior that's caused this jump? That's the question that I had, sir.
No, so from September to December, 4 installment accrued, and most of the customer has paid 3, and even more than 3 if somebody has not paid half of the installment or 1 installment he is not able to pay. So that has caused this, but more or less I have told you, we should see this into entirety, that collection efficiency has increased from 95 to almost 100%, and the customer who has not paid a single installment in September was 5,800, and in December it was around 2,000. So significantly improved.
So you're basically saying it's just a gradual wind down of the COVID-related disruption which you're seeing.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Karthik Chillappa from Buena Vista Fund Management. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity, sir. Good afternoon. I have 3 questions. The first one is, if I look at the 1 DPD of 8% and the NPL ratio of 1%, which are the geographies which are above this ratio currently?
Karthik, all the geographies are below that except Maharashtra.
What would that ratio be for Maharashtra, sir, if you could share it?
Maharashtra is 12%. Then rest of the geographies are 8% or less.
Okay. Is it the same for NPL as well? Hello?
Yeah, I'm just checking the number.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah, only Maharashtra.
Okay, so Maharashtra is also above 1% as far as NPL is concerned. Okay. The second question, sir, is this shift in favor of salaried and away from self-employed, which is this quarter has probably seen the sharpest change in the mix. You said that about 2.5% is because of the disbursements in the salaried segment. What are some of the early warning signals that you saw in the self-employed segment for you to turn a little bit more cautious?
No, so Karthik, there is no such kind of thing. As COVID came in, and every quarter we recalibrate our funding depending on the segments which we fund. So in self-employed, as we have told you earlier, there was only negative list. We will not fund this, and everything has to be fund, and mostly 50 categories we trap. And when COVID came in, we said that we will fund only this 20 positive categories. Rest we will see how they behave over a period of 2 quarters, and then we will open up. So because of that, I think salaried went a little bit higher, and self-employed category became normal. So out of the 3 categories which is most impacted was school and around the structure. So like stationary guys, school transporters, rented accommodation near the college and school uniforms. Second was hospitality and tourism, which was also on the track. And so these are the 2 industries which was mostly impacted. So school was the industry which has now opened up when government has started announced that school is opening up. Hospitality industry got opened up last quarter, and there we have seen that most of the things are normalizing now, but still we are cautious. So 8 to 10 profile in this kind of segments we have restricted, and that's where the proportion, the disbursement number is same, but the salaried and self-employed proportion got changed for this quarter. And let's see how the things plan up in next 1 and 2 quarter, and then we will continue doing the same 35 for 65, 40, 60, depending on that. But we still will prefer in our business segment is our key segment for funding.
Great, excellent. My last question, sir, is what Ghanshyamji just said to the previous response. So if we look at the securitization volume on a year-on-year basis was only up about 15%, but the income that we booked was up more than 50%. Ghanshyamji said that is because of the a higher mix of higher yielding loans in the securitization volume. What exactly would these loans be? Would these be the home improvement loans which actually carry higher yield and that has been securitized with a higher portion this quarter?
No. It's not on account of any home improvement. It's simply selection of a home loan pool, which has a maturity of more than 1 year as per the assignment norms by the RBI. So pool yield was 14.1%. This pool got sold at 7.56%. So spread was 6.54%. So that's why if earlier pool, if you compare with the last quarter, it was spread was just 5%. So 5 between 6.54 to 1.6% extra spread is given a higher income on the assignment.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and wish you and the team all the very best. I'll come back in the queue for more questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Aditya Jain from Citigroup. Please go ahead.
So just to confirm, the collection efficiency number includes the entire customer base, including 1+ DPD and NPA.
Yeah, so including NPA 98.8%, excluding NPA 100%.
Got it, okay. And the 1+ DPD reduction that we are expecting over the coming quarter, so largely you are saying that going to be driven by more people within that category coming back to regular payments. Is that the right understanding? Because you said
so mostly it was because of one EMI due in last quarter and last 4 months. So, and most of the I told you the when we did case by case analysis, mostly around school infrastructure system, and some of the guys were in hospitality. Both these segments have now started recovering, and we are seeing that positive result also. Hopefully, I think it will be better. And third one is again Supreme Court order. So once that will be there, I think things will improve. But I think as a team, when we see if anything new not coming in, it will be much better, because I've told you collection efficiency significantly improved. Any customer who has not paid that month installment has reduced by 60% from 5,800 to 2,000. So that's a significant improvement.
Correct, sir. And the home loan NPA ratio is higher than the other mortgage loan. Just out of curiosity, what has driven this? Is it, how would you see that phenomena?
No, but that is the same as last 3 quarters trend for us. Normally, if you see always, because home loans, so mortgage loans anyway, average tickets are 8 lakh. You have housing property in which customer is living. So this is the normal trend if you see last 1 and 2 years for us. So there is nothing changed and nothing to read in between.
Got it, sir. This is the last thing on the disbursement growth. So last quarter we had about 2-3%. Basically we are same in this quarter, year-over-year terms. And last quarter, I assume earlier months would have been very little disbursement compared to September. So exit growth rate might have been higher. So one would have thought that the year-over-year pickup could be more. So QOQ I'm not looking at because there is a seasonality involved, and 2Q has less disbursement. So how would you see the pickup in disbursement growth? China proceed seems a little slow.
No, so Aditya, I think this is as per our plan, because as you have told, 20 to 25% growth in year-on-year AUM wise. So we are already at 24% growth. So we are doing in line, but sourcing has significantly improved. But we have improved filter. So I think we are on track as we have decided for this year. Till Q4 we will be a little bit over cautious, and then we will be on a normal growth path.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Piran Engineer from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Congrats on the quarter. I have 2-3 questions. So my first question is, you have almost 2,000 crore liquidity on the balance sheet. Now, the next year, you have borrowing repayment of 1,000 crores. 1 year operating expenses also 250 crores. So even if we don't do single collection, you have enough liquidity to manage debt repayments and OPEX for more than a year. So why are we keeping so much of liquidity? Is it that the bankers ask for it, or you raised NCDs from the development financial institutions abroad? Are they asking you? What is the rationale for keeping such high levels of liquidity?
So, Piran, first thing, there is no such ask from anybody. It's management and board decision which we take according to situation. Normally, we keep 3 to 4 months of future disbursement as cash in hand. Traditionally, since last 5-6 years, due to COVID, we thought we will increase to 5 to 6 months. And as the things will normalize, we will again come back to 3 to 4 months of disbursement, like cash in hand. And it's a conservative policy which we keep on doing, and as management, we are comfortable with this.
So, 3-4 months means about 800, 900 crores, 1,000 crores maybe. That much of liquidity you all will tone down to.
Yeah, so our disbursement rate will be around 300 to 400 crore rupees. Accordingly, we will be there.
Okay. So my next question, so it's a bit more strategic, but I just wanted to understand now, with GRU becoming a bank, now the differential between interest rates that GRU or Bandhan Bank offers versus what you offer is now more than 300 bits. And even if I look at the branch network in some key states like say Gujarat, there is an overlap of 90-95%. Even the branches, when I see, they are just 1-2 kilometers apart. So what is our competitive advantage now versus such players who can offer a much lower interest rate? And do you see yield pressure as a result of this? Not in the near term, but maybe over the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, so Piran, as we always tell that when we started our journey also, we were having the same apprehensions, like when we entered in Gujarat 2013, that GRU is the most powerful and whether we will be able to do business or not. After 7 or 8 years, both are coexisting. They are also doing around 100 crore rupees of business, and we are also doing 50-60 crore rupees of business per month. Branches are there, but the customer segment is different. We are 70% self-employed. They are maybe 70% salaried. They are having more apartment properties. We are having more independent houses. They have 100% sourcing from DSA, DMA. We have 100% sourcing in-house. But market is such a large, both can coexist. Yes, we always acknowledge there will be competition. There can be pressure on our balance sheet also, which we are seeing in the last 3 years. So we always say that maybe our yields can compress by 50 to 75 basis points in the next 2 to 3 years. But we have sufficient depth available in the balance sheet where we can reduce our OPEX and we can sustain 2.5% ROA for medium to long term in our book.
Fair enough. So, and my last question, it's a bit more strategic, but I just wanted to get your thoughts. So, one of your competitors, which is getting listed very soon, they cater to the same sort of customer segment in affordable housing, but their business model is very different in terms of centralized underwriting. And as a result of that, they have a TAT of 2 days versus we have a TAT of 8-10 days. So is that something in the distant future I wanted to understand from you, what are the pros and cons of such a model, and could we look to, transform to such a model? Because that business will require only 15, 20, 30 credit managers. We have more than 600 credit managers. So it will be a more lean operating business. So I just wanted your thoughts on, what the pros and cons could be. That's my last question. Thank you.
So, Piran, if you can name the competitor?
Home First.
Okay, yeah. So totally different business models. They have 86% salaried business. They have more concentration on metro, and we say we don't want to work in metro because they are already top level guys, AAA guys are exist, and there will be lots of pricing pressure, lots of competition, lots of BT. And over the period of last 10 years, we have created our niche in tier 3 to tier 5, where we can price the risk, and now we have appraised almost 300,000 customers in that segment, so we are comfortable that kind of appraisal system. And everybody's business model have different kind of levers, so I will not comment on others, but in our business model we have sufficient spread, we have very good asset quality which we can maintain, and we were able to generate 2.5% plus ROA over a period of last 10 years. So I think we will continue with our kind of business segment. Yes, last 5 years we have also infused lots of technology which is helping us out in operations and bringing down OPEX. If you will see also over a period of last 3 years, every year we are able to reduce our OPEX by 30 to 40 basis points, and I think that journey will continue for us.
Okay, fair enough, sir. Thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shripal Doshi from Equirus Securities. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. So my question is with respect to the restructuring related request that we would have received. What is that? So if you can throw some color on that aspect.
Yeah. So first of all, like our 1+ number and NPA numbers, this is without any ECLG disbursement, without any restructuring. So it's plain and simple number. In the process, we have received around 100 to 150 restructuring requests. We have evaluated at our end and communicated to the customer. Some of the customers which were not happy with our decision, so they have moved out and did the BT from ourselves. And rest of the customers, either we have convinced them because it was not that their business is fully impacted and they need restructuring. And since 97% of our book is less than 25 lakh, and those were very smaller customers, and with opening up of schools and tourism industry, most of the requests from that side, so customer got convinced, and we have not restricted any account in our book.
Okay, and incrementally also we don't see that happening.
Yeah, now so we cannot do because it was a process. You need to do till 31st December and then implementation can be in last 3 months. So that's where I'm saying that 1+ number, 90+ numbers, these are plain simple numbers without any restructuring, without any ECLG, without any Supreme Court. Supreme Court number is shown in NPA, but we have still provisioned and published all the numbers taking without any reference. And beyond that, further 19.06 crore rupees as COVID provision is there in the balance sheet. And anyway, we are making sufficient profits, 200 crore rupees and how much? 270 crore rupees of PBT for us. So every quarter we are making sufficient profit, so balance sheet is in a very strong position.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. And sir, the second question was with respect to the reclassification of the customer profile. I understand that you said that there is not much to read into, but so is there a thought process to increase the salaried segment at the management level in the near term, say from currently 70% to 65 or 60%?
No, so Sripalji, that's not the scenario, but it's an evaluation. Like when we started our journey, we were BBB minus. Now we are AA minus. Our borrowing cost is around 7.5 for 12 years, and incremental borrowing, the treasury team has done excellent job with 7% for 12 years. So with pricing coming in, that also creates an opportunity for us to have a better customer segment, maintaining the spread. But as the company, we have three priorities. First, your asset quality. Second, maintaining the spread. And third is growth. So maintaining all these three DNA of our company, we will choose the segment for funding. On account of classification, it's only 1% or 1.5% impact, so that is not much. And that is a very detailed exercise with everybody involved, auditors, etc. Because ECL classification, and we have the most detailed kind of framework which we have created. So that's how it is.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, and good luck for the next quarter.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Antariksha Banerjee from ICICI Prudential Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello, sir. So first question is on this DPD movement. So just clarifying if I've understood it clearly, the 6.2 number that you had in September, that included everything that was more than 1 day overdue, right? Including NPA.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I compare between September and December, most of that 6%, excluding NPA, would have been in the 1 to 30 bucket, right? Because they would have missed one installment.
No, so 1 plus when we say it includes 1 to 30 DPD, 30 to 60 DPD, 60 to 90 DPD, and 90 plus accounts.
So can you give the 30 to 90 buckets for September and December? I think that would clarify.
So 30 to 90 right now out of this 8.2% is 3.8%. 3.8%.
Okay, and September was how much?
September, it will not be negligible now because last 6 months installment is not there. The only September installment was, if you compare year to year, it is about 1.7%. Antariksha?
Yeah.
Are you with me? So like say your March to August was moratorium.
Correct.
So no installment accrued.
Correct.
So September month first installment accrued. So any account cannot be moved to 31 to 60, na?
Okay, so that amount will be very small, negligible. That's what I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, because no installment accrued that point of time.
Okay, and 0 to 30, as per my understanding, was about 5,800 in terms of number of accounts in September, and 0 to 30 is 2,000 accounts in December. Broadly, that is right?
No. I will give you.
The standard book भी आ गई ना?
नहीं बता हूँ.
No. I mean, sorry, 1 to 30, not 0 to 30, 1 to 30.
Sorry?
People who have not paid in September and people who have not paid in December, that you said 5,800 versus 2,000, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
So that is one bucket due. That's all I wanted to confirm.
No, that can be in any bucket, no? It can be 1 to 30 also, 31 to 60 also, 61 to 90 also.
Got it. Okay. The second question is on the yields, sir. So you have been seeing a sharp decline in cost of funds for quite a few quarters now. When do you intend to pass it on to customers, or is that on the table at all? Because you're spending that above your mean average for quite a few quarters.
Antariksha, as per last quarter board meeting decision, we have already passed it on 10 basis point on 1st of January. And we will wait for another board meeting decision. So if things will be normalized by 31st March, again, some part of it we will release in maybe April to June quarter.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhijit Tibrewal from Reliance Securities. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Sushilji. Hi, Ghanshyamji. Thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to go back to the question which Antariksha was asking. So, I mean, while you suggested that about 5,800 people had not paid their EMIs in September and about 2,000 accounts have not paid their EMI in the month of December, I mean, what would this number be if we were to look at people who had not paid a single EMI till September, and how many people have not paid a single EMI till December?
That has already become NPA, na?
So you're right. So, which is to suggest that 1%.
0.49 was NPA earlier. Now 1% NPA, and on IGAP number it was 0.32 and 0.8.
Right. So which is to suggest that 1% of.
So 0.5% of the total pool which has not paid a single installment has become NPA.
Fair point. Which is to suggest that your pro forma stage 3 numbers includes everyone who has not paid a single EMI till December.
Yeah. So for us, there is no difference in pro forma and non-pro forma. We are straight. We are saying that 1% people is NPA. Without restructuring, without ECLG, without doing... Without Supreme Court freezing decision.
Fair point. Yeah, thanks for that.
It is around 0.3, and we have also provided 100% as per our ECL norms for the end percent.
Fair point. Thanks for that. And now going back to that question around your 1+ DPD and collection efficiency. So with 1+ DPD of about 8.2%, and like you suggested, collection efficiency of about 98.8% in December, and if we kind of exclude the GNPAs, that number would go up to 100%. So Shilji, if we were to assume here that these people who have paid their EMIs in the month of December, if these customers continue to pay their EMIs in the month of January, February, and March, would it be fair to assume that your DPD number, the 1+ DPD number, should come down kind of drastically from 8% levels, unless otherwise there are a lot of customers who are still paying part installments?
No. So anyway, we don't count part installment to change the DPD bucket, first thing. Second thing, what we are saying that after 1,20,000 live customers, only 2,000 has not paid the installment. Rest, out of this, 2,000 customers must have paid more than 2 installments. That's where it's a 100% collection efficiency. Going by that trend, if 1,18,000 continue to pay all the 3 installments, because if they have paid in December, so there is, but collection doesn't happen that way. There will be some roll forward and there will be some roll backward. So we can assume that roll forward will be less and roll back will be high. So we should be in a much better situation in March as per 1+. And NPA or stage 3 numbers can significantly change only when the Supreme Court decision will be there.
So fair point. So which is to suggest that, I mean, in your anticipation, let's say if collection efficiencies were to hold at these levels, between 98.5 and 99%, then can we go back to our guided levels of less than 5% DPD?
We will attempt that. We cannot comment on that.
Okay. And sir, just one last question. While a lot has been discussed about salaried and self-employed mix, this 4.2% spike in the salaried mix during the quarter. So while you're suggesting that over the last 9 months you've been doing a lot of these salaried disbursements, this kind of a mix we have already, I mean, we have seen in this quarter itself. Till the last quarter, your mix was holding steady at the same 35-65 kind of a salaried self-employed mix. So, I mean, what was there to suggest that, I mean, and again, you've been very kind, you've given that breakup that about 2.5% differential is because of higher disbursements. So, I mean, this differential because of higher disbursements, did they come only in Q3 itself? Because till last quarter, your mix was holding steady.
Every quarter, we give AUM number. 65-35 is AUM number. Disbursement number we have not given. Disbursement number for anyway, I think 40 or more than that. 45-55.
Yeah, this
Right. Okay. So, but your mix has changed only in this quarter, is what I'm trying to suggest. While you've been doing higher disbursements in salaried.
Anyway, first 3 months there were no disbursement, so last 6 months that is there. And as the economy will open up, we will again be more on the self-employed side. But during this month, since we were very cautious about certain sectors in self-employed category, so this last 6 months disbursement has this scenario.
Okay. And so just one last question, if I may just squeeze in. So this reclassification that we have done, tagging the accounts basis the primary earning member of the family rather than the main applicant, is it a standard industry practice that is there today, or?
It was also with us also. It's only 1% in cases which has changed. Now I've told you. So what happens in a case where you have funded 10 lakh rupee and there is a applicant which has say 15,000 rupee or 20,000 rupee income, and there is a salaried guy who is a co-applicant who has 25,000 rupee income or maybe 30,000 rupee income, and you have taken repayment from co-applicant from his salary account. So normal practice was from which account we have taken the repayment, we will classify that account into that category. For this 1% of the cases, instead of that, the primary applicant, which was like a business guy, tagged as a business category. So only this 1%, 1.5% cases during when we were doing the ECL framework during the COVID, and we were covering 100% of the customers, we find this inconsistency of 1.5% cases where we have tagged them as a self-employed rather than salaried guy, and the installment was coming from a salary account. We have, because of the auditor's observation and from our own again rechecking it, we have done that classification.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sushilji. Thank you for patiently answering all my questions. Wish you and your team the very best.
Thank you. Due to time constraints, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Sushil Agarwal for closing comments.
Thank you all. Thank you all for attending the call. And hope we have answered all your questions. To summarize, at Aavas, we continue to focus on improving customer service, being transparent with our customer. As mentioned in the last earning call, we have reduced Aavas Financiers Limited prime lending rate by 10 basis points with effect from 1st January 2021. Thank you so much for your time. For any further information, we request you to get in touch with Himanshu in our investor relations team or SJ, our IR advisor, and they would be happy to help you. Thank you all for your joining us call, showing interest and enthusiasm about asking questions. We will continue doing our best efforts and to answer all your questions in future also.
Thank you. On behalf of Aavas Financiers Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.